Joining us is a lady who's been on with us in the last year plus as things have escalated. And she's since gone public with her full name and who she is and been on national TV in Australia. Her family left Australia because basically Assad ran some of them out. So they don't like Assad, and they're Sunni. They were formerly, part of the, ruling party and the top folks in the country. But that said, she now for the last year plus has been very, very critical of what's happening there because it's foreign governments bringing in al-Qaeda to carry out unbelievable atrocities, blowing up churches, you name it. And she's been on for over a year. The videos, the news articles are on Infowars.com saying they're going to stage a fake chemical attack. They've been caught staging some smaller ones. Look at who put out the report. But Syrian Girl, tell folks who you really are on air, a little bit about yourself, because I think that's important, what your real name is for folks that don't know, and your Twitter, your Facebook up front, so that they understand and so they can go read the articles you've written, the videos you did going back over a year that have all proven 100% accurate, and then tell us, even though, again, you've been opposed to Assad, you've joined supporting that government because it is criminal to offensively come in and engage in mass murder. So break down the latest from family you've still got living there of what's happening as you join us from Australia. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me again. It's a great podium to have that's independent, one of the few podiums that actually listens to this voice, this message that is being drowned out, because I actually don't want to fuel the war in Syria. My intentions from the start is to try to expose the reality of the bigger, grander scheme that's being played here. And personally, my family were not exiled from Syria, but my previous, my grandfather was in government, deposed by the Ba'ath Party coup. So my family as a whole, from both sides, have always been opposition. And I grew up, being against the government, being told about how terrible the crimes of the government were against, my own family members, some of which went to jail under suspicion of being Muslim Brotherhood. So for 20 years, in fact. So I'm not going to come here and deny that the government wasn't a dictatorship, it wasn't corrupt, that people weren't angry with it. And I'm not going to say that there wasn't, a legitimate reason for people to want to create that change. But the fact is that that was totally exploited and even pre-planned by the foreign agendas, the US, NATO, basically the global elite, as you call them.
Absolutely. And again, your real name is Mimi al-Laham. You've had a lot of courage. How long since you went public? It's been about a year and a half, right?
I believe so, yes.
It was early last year, but this has been going on now for 2.5 years, and they call them activists. They have tanks, they have Chinese tow missiles, they have U.S. tow missiles, they have Stingers, they have heat-seeking missiles. They're blowing up churches, blowing up airports, blowing up markets, and they're called heroes on CNN. And so even though the father Assad was somewhat brutal, compared to al-Qaeda, he was a good guy. Now it's correct to say that the son, trained in England, was loosening things, though, or is that improper to say?
No, he was definitely loosening things. Like, every year I would go back and I would see that people were more open, speaking more openly. The first step he took was to release some political prisoners. But whilst he was doing something good on one hand, on the other hand, you could say that there was government failings in maybe his policy of opening the economy actually made the rich rich and the poor poor.
Well, Mimi, absolutely. Always ruling elites do that. That's why you don't want a big centralized government. It will centralize the economy. That's just the way it is. So that said, we've shown the other side that your family's been opposition for 20 years. Now let's shift gears into what's on record, that the CIA, the NATO commandos, the heavy weapons, the chemical attack that you over a year ago, you were the first person to say they're going to do a chemical false flag. Now, the Russians have said they've done that. They've caught them doing it before. What do you know about this latest attack right as the UN inspectors showed up?
Okay, well, as you exactly said, this incident occurred a day after the UN arrived in Damascus. And the timing of it was, the Syrian government actually requested the UN presence to investigate another incident, which was in Khan al-Assal in Aleppo. So actually the UN team was only kilometers away from the site because they were in Damascus when this happened.
Exactly. So, they don't want the last chemical attacks that have been proven fake certified, so they did a new, bigger one.
It's illogical to think that the Syrian government is going to profit from this just by the way that the media is reacting to this. And 1 year to the day of this event, exactly, was Obama's Red Line speech.
That's right.
Of where he promised, some sort of unnamed action if Syria were to use chemical weapons, and people inferred that that was a no-fly zone. And, that was the same time that me and many other bloggers, Tony Cartolucci, were saying, it looks like from the way they're posturing that they want to create some kind of chemical incident to give them an excuse to intervene in some way. Now, I think it's absolutely undeniable that little children died in Damascus 3 days ago, and that the images are shocking. And anyone can see, cannot deny that. And I'm not going to comment on the nature of the gas that was used. I'm going to leave that to experts. And I also don't want to implicate the rebels as a whole, because, while you could say some of them are al-Qaeda, some of them are foreign, some of them are thieves, some of them would have, as I showed on my channel, used a prisoner as an unwitting suicide bomber. And this is part of the FSA, that's one of the groups under the FSA umbrella that did this. That's not an al-Qaeda group. So I don't want to implicate them directly, because I'm sure that some of them had families that live in that area, and I believe that they themselves are patsies to a global game that they're cannon fodder for. And the powers that be have managed to convince them that they're going to get armed, they're going to get no-fly zones. But the reality of the situation is, and what I do know, is that the US doesn't attack countries that actually possess chemical weapons. And in order to achieve any kind of attack, they would first have to get rid of a country's chemical weapons. And this is one of the reasons, one of the core causes for this war. Not only that, but of course they want to divide Syria up into mini-states, and they want to crush any rogue states, basically. Yeah, any state not run by Goldman Sachs, basically. So we'll come right back on the other side and break that down. Europe's been conquered by Goldman Sachs. They actually brag about that, and J.P. Morgan. And the big royal families that sit atop it, and it is just unbelievable that this is going on. And right on time, you have this chemical attack right when the inspectors are there. Johnny Appleseed was born during the Revolutionary War. He's not just a legend. And in more than 5 states, he introduced apples that had not even been grown in the colonies. Later, the seeds from plants he planted and cultivated, and some of the varieties he developed, spread across the United States. And it was Johnny Appleseed teaching the colonists and then the new Americans, after we won independence, the love of planting fruit trees that introduced that idea to North America. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a revolutionary act to unplug from the television, to unplug from the computer and all the globalist propaganda, and to go out in your backyard or your front yard or planters at your apartment or on the roof of the building where you live, and to plant a garden. Become the Johnny Appleseed of your community with seeds from the Infowars Seed Center at InfowarsStore.com. The simple act of
planting fruits and vegetables and then tending them and taking care of them and then sharing them with friends and family is a revolutionary act against tyranny. The globalists, first and foremost, do not want us to be self-sufficient. The crony anti-free market capitalist, the fascist, are using socialism and collectivism to shut down societies. Stalin in Poland and in Ukraine and other areas starved on record more than 10 million people over 5 years by not letting them grow their own crops and collectivizing them. Mao killed between 65 million and 80 plus million people doing this same thing. The UN says they will use food as a weapon. They use genetic evil to attack the earth, and major GMO companies have been caught going into growth belts around the world, even where GMO is illegal, and planting seeds everywhere to infect the genetics of the original crops. Almost all of the thousands of varieties of Mexican corn has been infected. They are in a genetic war against everyone. That's why we have to get these seeds and not just plant them on our own gardens and not just give them as gifts to friends and family to plant spring and summer and fall gardens. I'm calling on you to go out into the green belts, to go out into the areas and plant secret gardens. No, not of marijuana, but of the hundreds and hundreds of incredible high-quality vegetables and herbs and fruit plants that are here. Lemons and oranges, the list goes on and on. They will grow, plum trees, grape trees, they will grow almost everywhere in the U.S. We can literally, not just buying these products from InfoWarsStore.com, but from wherever you get them. This aggressive program literally just came to me one morning when I woke up about 4 a.m. realizing that we've got to counter their genetic war against us with original, real crops developed over eons on this planet. We have the lowest prices. We bought it in the biggest bulk that some of these companies have ever seen to ship this directly to you from the InfoWars Command Center. We stand for life. We stand for liberty. We stand for self-sufficiency. Go to InfoWarsStore.com, click on the Seed Center, and as of taping this, we have the 7 top respected brands. We intend to continue to do research and find other companies, other specialties, other varieties to really take action.
The Infowars Store Seed Center has the largest online selection of heirloom, non-GMO seeds.
Check out these products from our newest supplier, Heirloom Organics.
The Medicine Garden for a natural remedy.
The Tea Garden that contains every important tea herb you can grow.
Fruit Lovers with 12 varieties.
And the Tobacco Pack, additive and pesticide free.
Join the gardening revolution today at InfoWarsStore.com.
This is a revolutionary action we're asking you to take. Plant seeds everywhere today. Nurture them, bring them to fruit, and pass on the knowledge to others. Become human again. Discover your roots in the soil. And remember, the revolution against tyranny is growing. Mimi al-Laham, known as Syrian Girl, before her identity was revealed by Australian TV News, is a family basically self-exiled because of political reasons. They don't like Assad. But Assad was moving towards more of what you'd call a democratization and reaching out to the West. And I follow geopolitical developments. So was Gaddafi. He invested most of his money with Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and invited them all in, opened up, apologized. Boy, they set him up. Bam, brought in al-Qaeda. And now they've wrecked the whole country. They don't want Africa being lifted up. They want them deindustrialized. In fact, the foundations complained about Libya. Libya was jacking up all of Africa. By jacking them up, by giving them aid, by creating an infrastructure. Globalists don't want anybody to have an infrastructure, folks, except them. It's called Agenda 21. It's military corporatism. That's the New World Order. It's militarized corporatism. That's the best way to describe them right there, my term. Militarized corporatism. Scorched earth. And in closing, they've now got a lot of analysts saying this could lead to World War III with the Russians there. The Russians are saying it's a false flag. The rebels have been caught 3 other times doing these fake chemical things since the Red Line deal, but this one was bigger. And I'm so sad for all the forces that are there, but we know if the country's turned over to al-Qaeda, that, I mean, in my summation, what is that, 10 times worse than Assad? 20 times? Your comments on that and other points and where you think this is going to go now?
I think you headed exactly where I was going to go in that direction. I want to make it clear that as bad as the government used to be, what they have planned to take power in Syria now is going to be 10 times worse, as you said. And you only need to look at history of what happened in Libya and what happened in Iraq to see that the U.S. government's intentions in the region was not democratization. You know, those governments, those new ones, tortured just as much as the previous ones, if not more so. Only the country that they're in is completely decimated. That's the only difference. And, you know, the fact about Libya, as you said, you know, Gaddafi, he really fell for it. He opened up the gates. He thought, let's be friends. They said in 2003, he probably knew his country would be next on the list. So in 2003, after the Iraq invasion had already begun, he agreed to weapons of mass destruction disarmament. And he was attacked in 2011. And I just said, you know, the US government is not going to attack a country that possesses weapons of mass destruction. They first have to remove them. And, you know, in Iraq,
but from here on out, let's just call it Goldman Sachs. I mean, they brag. They run the country. So Goldman Sachs wants you to give up your WMDs, invest with them, then they bring in al-Qaeda.
Well, they destroy your country, and then they make money by rebuilding it.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly right. You know, it's not even the U.S. government. It's just a shortcut. And
then they roll in with water fluoridation and the shots, and suddenly nobody can tie your shoelaces, and you're like Americans, and it's game over, you're dead. Yeah.
I think it's just the face of something much darker and bigger and global. And, you know, in Iraq, they were again disarmed in 1991 using the United Nations and were attacked in 2003 after the United Nations was used again to make absolutely certain that Saddam hadn't hidden some stash of WMDs somewhere. And in fact, the U.S. military, when they invaded, they were still afraid of it enough to provide all their soldiers with gas masks.
Oh, yeah, that's what the UN does. It comes in as the peacekeeper to disarm you, and then NATO comes in with the U.S. and murders everybody. Absolutely. Stay there, man. I tell you, she has a way of crystallizing stuff that takes me hours to say. Mimi al-Laham, Syrian Girl, will give you her Twitter and Facebook. When we come back, you can check ours out at Real Alex Jones, and we have links on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Please follow us. Please support us. Please get our articles out to everybody. There's a lot of them right now at PrisonPlanet.com.
As we saw in Katrina, and as we are watching now in New York and New Jersey, the federal government can't and won't help you in a crisis. FEMA ran out of water and MREs in days. Electricity is still off to over 1 million people. The Red Cross, who is quick to beg for money, is now slow to react. Don't put it off any longer. Get prepared today. While you're on InfoWarsShop.com, check out these other great preparedness items. The Aquapod Kit lets you store up to 65 gallons of water in your bathtub. The Pocket Socket provides you with manual electricity for small electronics like your cell phone. The Life Straw is great for your bug-out bag. And check out our complete line of Interfood products for great tasting and nutritionally dense foods that have a great shelf life. If you are looking to secure your home in a crisis, you can order Strategic Relocations, the film, a great companion to the book Strategic Relocations 3rd edition, and The Secure Home by Joel Skousen. When the time to perform arrives, the time to prepare has already passed. Get prepared now, so if a crisis strikes your home, you and your family will be secure. Go to InfoWarsShop.com.
The globalists just don't want to destroy the 8 rogue nations on their list. They've already taken down several of them. They want to destroy all independent nations, the family, anything that can stand against them. And when Serial Girl is on with us, Mimi al-Laham, talking about how they get people to give up their WMDs and then invade and then turn off the water, bring in GMO, bring in fluoride, bring in forced inoculations, cancer rates are like 14 times what they were in Iraq. These are genocide operations. And they're genociding our troops with the DU and the vaccines and the forced drugging as well. The New World Order, we have a clip of a professor and his students up on Infowars.com today saying, yeah, we need, cut off the food and have genetically engineered bioweapons to get rid of people. And you hear everybody clapping and smiling, and it's a big group of graduate students, and it's a power trip, folks. And they see it as exterminating cockroaches. So just understand, good old boys and others that say, oh, let's kill them Arabs. They're killing you, too. So drink your fluoride. Syrian girl, finishing up. We got about 4 minutes in this segment. Other eloquent points you'd like to make about, I see mainstream articles here saying Assad will still win, but it looks like the globalists aren't going to stop. I mean, what do you expect them to do next?
I want to make it clear that I predict that there's not going to be a no-fly zone. If the U.S. was going to do that, if the globalists were going to do that, they would have done it 10 red lines ago. The Russian veto wouldn't have stopped them. I think that what they really want to see is disarmament of Syria, and they want to see Syria get Balkanized and broken up.
Well, yeah, Kissinger said that's what he wants. Kissinger said that, yeah.
He absolutely said it, and it was Ron Paul's son, Rand Paul, who said that he heard that they were fighting towards a stalemate as well from another source. So, I just wanted to that end just to give evidence that at the UN, an Israeli ambassador a year ago said that we should expect to see the US, the Syrian government gassing children in the future. And 1 year later, the smoke clears, and the same ambassador said, we want to make sure that those Syrian chemical weapon stockpiles don't end up in the hands of Hezbollah. So really, it's not about Syria's children. It's about the chemical weapons. It's about getting at them, because they don't want to have any country that has a deterrent, not, except for themselves. They want to control all the power, just like they do with the guns. So,
well, it's like they tricked Saddam to use nerve gas on the Iranians and then later use that to invade him.
The Iran-Iraq war they're tricking both sides, to attack each other. And on the GMO, Bremer, one of the first things he did in Iraq was allow GMO. And Syria in 2011, Assad banned genetically modified food. So there's definitely these games happening with Monsanto, being one of the corporate warmongers, the dogs of war, as they call them.
Well, Mimi, it came out in the London Telegraph and BBC that Assad's people listen to this show. And I can't believe these governments aren't sophisticated enough to figure this stuff out on their own. I'm not being cynical. It's just that, like, Assad's dad sending him stuff, Infowars, them. I mean, I don't understand why these governments are so rigid, they can't even figure this out. Like, why did the Arabs and the Persians let the West trick them into killing each other? Just, I don't understand this. Why do they have to listen to me to figure this out?
I think, people's hatred of each other can be easily fueled. And that's where it's divide and conquer. And your neighbor, your brother, becomes an enemy worse than the enemy that's actually pulling your strings, both of you, from far away. And I saw it happen in Iraq. I saw it happen all over the place. Libya, of course. So.
Well, Syrian girl, I'd like to get you on the nightly news since this is all unfolding. I know we got you up very early over in Australia, so you can give us a full and uninterrupted report with one of our reporters. If you want to do that, we'll set that up right now. We can dial you up in the next 10 minutes and do that for the nightly news if you'd like. Please tell the crew. Thank you very much, Mimi.
Now you can watch the Infowars Nightly News streaming live as it happens for free.
Check it out at Infowars.com/show.